The best part about Craig is I start the stage and I start Craig and he starts going. So we don't get stuck in the thing where like while Maddie's setting up her mic, we're sitting there vamping and we say a lot of good stuff, but none of it's recorded. Yeah. So like right now, if you and I said something hilarious, we would have it.
Oh man. It'd be great if we said something hilarious.
Yeah, too bad me and you don't know how to say anything hilarious. Hello, and welcome to RPG Book Club by Request, the episodes where you tell us what to do and we do it because we are suckers for money. I am Sam Allman.
I am Elias Sailor Eli Warren.
And I'm Maddy Grace Webben.
And today we will be playing Dandy Dungeon by Onion Games, localized by Tim Rogers, paid for by David Bernard Houck, my co-host on Book Club No Kaseki. He paid for this a long time ago, and we kept putting it off because it'll be so easy. We'll do that whenever, and then...
Yeah, we just kept putting it off. It actually wasn't even really playing the game. It was more just finding a damn time to record the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As someone who takes commissions for artwork, you have to understand that sometimes other shit's going to get in the way.
Yeah.
And the artist...
Well, somebody kept giving us lots of money to do long casts. Don't stop.
Thank you, Car. We love you.
Yes, we really do.
We really do. But before we start talking about Dandy Dungeon, let's talk about a completely different video game coming soon to someplace where you would buy video games near you. Is How Am I Supposed to Fit In at College When There Aren't Any Other Animal People, But I'm a Possum Boy, The Ballad of Joey Virginia by David Bernard Houck. This is only our second by request, so you may have forgotten that these are ads. So if you commission an episode, we'll talk about whatever you want for us, whatever you want us to for a hot minute before we start the episode. So, Possum Boy.
Yeah, let me talk about it for a second. I've been heavily involved in the development of this game, by which I mean I'm programming it, by which I mean I'm doing what can vaguely be called programming it, because the programming is very simplistic. But also, I've read the whole script and have seen all the art and all that stuff, and get excited. Our main boy Bernard has been making this thing for quite a while. He just announced it like a few days ago, and it is a dating sim. A straight-ahead dating sim. It's not going to do the thing where it's like, it's what if it was a dating sim but it was fucked up, or like what if we subverted it, or what if we tried to like improve it because we're wise, mature, sophisticated Westerners. I'm saying I think a lot of Western VNs are deeply offensive because they assume that like they think that like the Japanese thing is dumb and we're going to make it better. It doesn't do that. It is just it's a dating sim. That's what it is. But the premise is that, as you can tell from the title, you play a possum boy named Joey. His dad is a man and his mother is a possum. And he looks like a big furry. And he's a freshman in college, and you get to college, and I think I might as well spoil a tiny bit of it. You might think it's like a thing about like learning to be like accepted or something. Like it's a metaphor for like I don't know, like being queer or something. But okay, it's not that. But right off the bat, it becomes clear that no one in college gives a shit that he's a possum. He's like, I'm from a small town where I was like a freak, and his roommate is just like, whatever, man, it's college. People are weird. There's lots of weird people here. And I'm not saying the fact he's a possum it doesn't factor into the plot. It does, but that is sort of one of the little premises that is very cute about it, is that it's not about his struggle to be accepted in like a really deep, meaningful way, because most people just don't really care, and it's more just about relationships, like typical dating sim type stuff. There's a lot of really wonderful characters. It takes place over the course of one semester, so it's just a little slice of his college life, and you there's a couple different characters. I'll say one or two of them just so that I don't want to spoil much. One of them is an artist. One of them is like a cool stoner, dating people of various genders. And yeah, you go through school, you go on the dates, and the dialogue is really, really good because Bernard is a really, really good writer.
He really is.
And you will love all the characters. The first time I read the script, it was the rough draft, like first draft of the script. I was expecting it to be rough, and I was like, dog, this is great.
Yeah.
Like, obviously it needed some work, and he put a lot of work into making it better, but it was great. It was really, really, really good. I had a lot of big, hearty laughs and a lot of aww kind of moments. Anyway, it bucks.
If you are like a deep fan of the show and you know like deep show lore, then you'll be excited to know that the art, part of the art at least, is getting done by Sister Orator, the creator of Lint.
I was literally just about to say that, and then you jumped in and said it. Yeah,
the creator of Lint, the game that me and Maddy like obsessed over on our
loved that game, and that's
indie episode.
That's who's doing the art.
And they're also the people who did the art currently for year 3. So, art's going to be great.
This game is in many ways in the RPG Book Club extended universe, you could say.
Yes.
It's coming soon. It's not out yet, but it's close enough to being out that he went and announced it online. So feel free to
you can.
We should maybe put a link to the announcement tweet or something in the show notes or something, and you can click and follow and take a look at it and take a look at whatever art has been officially released so far. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah. If you want to follow it on Twitter, Bernard is at Barnyard House, just as it sounds. And also Big Knife Studio. That is singular studio, not plural studios. Big Knife Studio. So follow them on
knife,
Twitter.
Buddy, and you ain't in it.
Let's follow them on Twitter. Get some possum-related updates and check them out. Thank you so much, Bernard, for A, supporting the show, B, joining the show 3 months after you paid to support the show, and C, for letting us play this magnificent game, because I'm pretty certain all of us loved it. So without further ado, let's enter the danger zone and talk about Dandy Dungeon. So Dandy Dungeon, if you've never heard of it, I don't blame you. It was a free-to-play game made for like mobile phones and shit by Onion Games, the people who made the Moon anti-RPG for the PS1. This game was localized by Tim Rogers, who ironically went on to then localize Moon for the Switch port. We love Tim Rogers so much. That was the reason I was super like interested in it. It was like my gateway drug into this game, and the whole game owns, not just the localization. But we are not playing the free-to-play version. It's been left in the iOS dust, much like the official localization of Shin Megami Tensei, because every time Apple updates, you have to actively patch your game to work for the new iOS, and ain't nobody got time for that. So
the game has been the game server is offline. You can no longer play it in its traditional form. The original game, it follows you know those kind of games where it's like, oh, you have a certain amount of energy every day, and there's a recharging on timers, and you might send characters off on little quests that take real world amount of time, you know, that kind of thing. I will say the original game was free to play, but it had a store where you can buy real stuff, and if I really love a free to play game, and I don't just love it because it's got dark design, addictive, sinister properties, but it's actually real good, I'll always throw them some ducats. So I believe it was like if you pay $3, you can buy the item that makes it where you don't have energy anymore. It's just unlimited energy. But it did do a lot of stuff with time, and they had to rejigger it in a bunch of ways to make it not have microtransactions and not have like real world passage of time stuff. I think I actually slightly prefer the original game, but if you haven't played the original game, you're not missing out on anything. You won't know what you're missing, and it's all very subtle. It's all very subtle game design stuff.
Yeah, the only one that I even noticed that I was like, oh, this makes more sense in a regular gacha game is the sending people out to go on quests, because it's like it costs the same amount of money as just buying it from the shop, because both of those have been rejiggered to be more fair for a microtransactions game. So it's like, why would I use this menu where I have to wait through all of this animation to get a random item when I could just buy the item in the shop? And it's because you would send the guys off and it would take time and it would be different. But that was the only time I even noticed it at all. Otherwise, it just feels like...
There's also one way the game's actually harder, which is that in the free-to-play version, there's an item, the rice ball, that revives you and these other things. Those cost real-world money, which on one hand, you could say it's a little manipulative. On the other hand, if you need one, you can buy one. In this game, if you need one and don't have any... Tough. You just don't get to have one. So in a way, it makes the game harder because you do not have the opportunity of occasionally deciding, fuck it, I'll pay $1.
Yeah. There were a couple times, like especially with the final boss. The final boss was real hard. I'd get it down to like 15 health. I knew if I was alive one more turn, I would win. I was like, I wish I had a freaking rice ball.
Yeah, you're like, I literally would pay $1 to just win this battle right now, but I can't because it's not a free-to-play game anymore. It costs, what, like $5?
I don't remember. It was 5 or 10. I think we got Maybe it on sale, more. So yeah.
Oh, also, the original game Dandy Dungeon, after like a year of like constant updates, like most software as a service type games, like it had all these special events, all the kind of stuff you expect, right? Limited time dungeons and bosses. Eventually, it got a free upgrade to Dandy Dungeon 2, where it got an entire extra campaign with extra story and all this. And I never played Dandy Dungeon 2 because I'd already gotten to Dandy Dungeon 1. So when 2 came out, I was like, I don't feel like jumping back in. And both campaigns are in this game, but we're only playing the first one.
Yeah. I probably will play the second one because the second one seems cool, and it like literally is a sequel and not just more levels. Like it includes all of your previous progress, so in that way it's more levels. But they do the thing that like Mega Man Battle Network. The first game was like, oh, this is the town, this is the stuff. The second one doesn't just say go into different computers in the same town. It's like, oh, we're going to like expand how you think about playing this game. It's like, oh, now you have like things in the school and like you go interact with people's houses different and stuff like that.
Very much a sequel.
And so the second one, it's like, oh, now it's non-linear. You have this whole different like way you interact with the story, and it's like real cool. And watching the thing today made me want to start playing it, so I probably will start playing it again soon. But so before we get into the plot of the game, I think now would probably be the best time to talk about the gameplay of the game, because of all of the games I've ever played in my entire life, the game and the story are very mechanically separate because of how the story is told. So it won't be like, oh, so then we had to fight the main bad guy, and hero got a new spell because of power of friendship in the middle of the fight. It's like, no, the thing happened and that inspired us to go and play the game part, and then we came back and did the thing. And so I definitely want to touch on it because it's great, but it just won't fit into the flow as much later. So Yamada-kun, our main character, is he's a game developer, and he's developing his own video game, and that's the game that we're playing. So while the story stuff happens to him, we're playing the game on his computer. Yeah. So it's very
he's playtesting his own game. And when he, in the plot, decides to add a new mechanic to the game that he's making, then we get a new mechanic in the game that we're playing. So the game, over the course of the story, he, at his little computer, adds more and more stuff to the game and makes it more and more complicated. It's a cute way of doing a tutorial, because instead of it being like all these mechanics already exist, we're tutorializing them at you. It's like, no, he's creating the game. Why didn't they have crafting for the first 30 minutes of the game? Because he hadn't invented crafting yet. Yeah. He hadn't implemented it, which is really, really cute. So the whole game is implementing new features, and the game's getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah. And so the main gameplay is basically if someone made like a roguelite RPG around the ice breaky puzzles from Pokemon, where you have to walk on each square one time. And so at the beginning of the game, it's basically just that. You make your path through and you'll win. But as you get through, there will be more monsters that have different mechanics. You'll have they managed to make all the boss fights more than just standing and watching you fight the boss, which is interesting and really cool. And a big thing, like the main gameplay loop towards the end, is having good items and spells and knowing when to use them, how to use them, hoping they don't break when you use them, stuff like that. And that, like the final boss is all just timing your items. Like I'm sure you could grind high enough where you could just let it go, but the main thing you want to do is like, what's your best item loadout to beat the bosses? Yeah. And
to make things a little more clear, the game takes place on a 5x5 grid. And you come in one door of the dungeon, and there's an exit door somewhere in the dungeon, and walls. So all you gotta do, and enemies. So all you gotta do is literally draw a path with your finger on this 25 square grid to get yourself from the beginning to the end. You can just make a beeline to the end, but you get a bonus if you travel on every traversable space of floor. If there's a space of floor that is blocked off by a wall that you can't get through, you don't get penalized for not walking on it.
But if you're dumb like me and you use one of the all spells that like breaks down the walls, you then get penalized.
And you do get penalized for it, yeah, which is tough. Yeah, it's sneaky. And like there might be treasure that you can't get to, but if you can't get to it, then you don't get penalized. Although you're still like, damn it, I wanted that treasure. Yeah, and actually another connection to the RPG Book Club game. If the path you trace makes you go past an enemy, like there's an enemy blocking your path, then you exchange blows with them, like the game for the Frog the Bell Tolls. Although more complicated than that game. That game is literally just gating an adventure game. It's a pretend adventure game. It's a pretend RPG. Disguised as an adventure game. But yeah, so you hit them, they hit you. You hit them, they hit you. You can get crits. They can also get crits. They might cast spells. Every enemy has different things. Like one enemy might poison you. A pig, if you're on the same lateral plane as them, they'll run up to you, so they'll run to you instead of just waiting for you to come to them. But then also, yeah, you can have 5 items, and the item can do things like potion, to just heal yourself. Use it at the right time to not die. Strength up. Use it to make your strength go up for X amount of turns. And then spells. Cast a spell to hit the bad guy. And as you go through the game, the moves go more and more, more complicated. So really the only strat is draw a path that not only hits every square, but sometimes you might have a few different options, and you might decide which one's going to be the best as far as enemies go. There often might be a safer route you could take, or a route that puts you better positioned. That way you're not getting like ganged up on by the enemies or whatever. Or you might also need to avoid like traps and stuff like that. Yeah, so you draw your path, and then you hit the items at the right time, and you go up X number of floors until you get to the end, and then you get treasure. Yeah. And there's a lot of RNG. You're like, oh, I really want to get the platinum treasure, but then the platinum treasure doesn't spawn, so you do the same dungeon 20 times to get the platinum treasure. But it's fun anyway, because it's a cute little brain puzzle, and the music and graphics are great.
Yeah, it has a very good, like, zen-like flow, where, like, when I was playing it, I was, like, watching TV during the time, and I would look down and plot out my thingy, and then look back up while it was animated, and et cetera, and you just... If I had this on mobile, I probably would have sunk a lot of time into it. Like,
yeah, that's the thing. I would have had an easier time playing it for the pod if it was still on mobile, because I would have played that version of it, because then I could have just played it on the bus, played it while waiting for the doctor's appointment. But on Switch, it's like, oh, I gotta sit down and play this like a real video game. Well, okay, I guess I will.
Yeah. But yeah, so now let's talk about the plot itself. So the game starts, and we meet Yamada-kun, a burnt-out programmer at Empire Games who wants to stay home making his own video game, but he's never done that before. So he wants us to help him make one by testing it for him. That's right, us, the real us outside the screen, one holding the Switch. We are a character in the game. So first, Yamada implements a hero and a monsters and a dungeon, and while doing that, he forgets to go to work. But with his core systems implemented, we can playtest for him, so we get our tutorial. While we're testing and Yamada-kun is coding, in comes Yasu, his coworker, who calls him senpai, and he's like, "You really got to come back to work." Also, big news, a really, 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 really hot girl has moved in next door. And just like that, Maria shows up, the aforementioned...
That's her thing.
Yes. So she shows up, and Yamada instantly falls in love with her. She says that she loves basically everything. The only thing that she hates is her daddy's thunder. Yamada then gets super inspired. I should say, every time I say he's inspired to do something, he throws off all of his clothes violently, jumps into his chair, and starts coding.
He only programs in the nude, or in his boxers. Yeah, so like at the end of each
proper video game programmer should.
Yeah, at the end of each like little cutscene, whether major or minor, he walks over, because the whole game takes place inside of his apartment. Mm-hmm. So he'll be at the door talking to Yasu, and then he'll be like, "All right, fuck Yasu, I'm going to go back to programming." So then this camera pans to the left, and he throws off all of his clothes, is in his boxers, and then plops his butt down on his computer and starts tippity-tapping away with the really cute little sprite graphics.
It's so good. So Yamada-kun thinks, maybe if I rescue Princess Maria in the game, the real Maria will love me in real life. So
he's like your typical incel gamer.
He really is.
Yeah. So he writes her into the game.
Yeah. So he takes a break from learning how to develop video games and develops a phone app that tracks how much Maria loves him in a cool numerical fashion. So he can see how much that making dungeons and beating those dungeons will make her love him. It's seriously impressive technology, and honestly, good game design. And that's a direct quote from the game, by the way. Yes. In case you couldn't tell. So later, 9 dudes in suits show up to Yamada's apartment and start trashing the place. And with them comes the king of Empire Games, Chairman Hidemaru Ayanokoji. He has a big old potato-looking head, and he is obviously the villain of the piece the moment he walks in.
He looks like a billion-year-old ancient wizard.
Yes.
Yeah. He also has a tiny little golden crown on his head.
It's great. So he's there to rough up Yamada for skipping work, and he fires him. And Yamada-kun becomes unemployed. Sorry.
That's what it does when you die.
Yes. So they leave, and he just says, "Man, this sucks. I'm going to channel this suck into video games." And he implements the chairman's tower and game overs so that we can die in the game, since he almost died in real life. In the game,
die in the game, you die for real.
So in the game, the evil king is modeled after Ayanokoji, and after we defeat him, he reveals that he was just a decoy. Did Yamada really believe that we could defeat him, even in a video game? And he proceeds to whoop our butts. He then decides to take over our game, and he sends an evil programmer to edit Yamada's game to have a Demon Lord castle in it, as well as a demon ad. The ad says that Empire's game has taken over his idiotic game, and there are 3 of the Demon Lord's children in the game that we have to defeat and take their significant objects.
I'm going to guess that the demon ad feature used to be an actual ad feature.
No,
it was this. It's plot important that it would be this one.
The game didn't have ads. I do believe that it is. That's the joke for sure. It's like a mobile game ad.
I assumed that it was like an ad that you could watch to like get an extra life or something like that.
No, that's what Danganronpa does. They replace the fake Sakura game with their real iOS game. Danganronpa.
Yeah, it was very jarring to hear that you all saw something totally different from what I saw in Danganronpa.
It's so wild to me. But so Yamada gets super mad that they made his game stressful. It was supposed to just be about him and Maria kissing and stuff. So he implements
just hugging and stuff.
Yeah.
So I had that one screenshotted.
He implements a roguelike dungeon so that we can train to proceed through the Demon Lord's levels, which are real hard. You spend most of your game not in the plot important dungeons because they're hard and you have to do a lot of grinding.
There's so many of the random dungeons too. Like every other fucking second you're unlocking a new one. Like there's a bazillion of them, and
there's so many different things you can get from every one of them.
Yeah, even though they have RNG level layouts, they do each one does have like specific kinds of enemies and specific kinds of traps. So you really do get to know each one very distinctly. Just like the forest, so you're gonna have like trees that are weak against fire, and wolves that are weak against things that do damage to beasts, and they're going to drop things like wood or beast pelts or whatever. And then there's like the mysterious crypt, which is going to have different kinds of enemies, different kinds of treasure, all that kind of stuff.
So Yasu comes over and he warns us that a suspicious lady is coming around selling organic goods door to door, and that we should be careful or we too will be sold soap. Later still, a pig knocks on our door, oinking at us, but walks in behind the pig that suspicious lady named Komibitsu. She is Empire Group's head of organic foods department. She says that Yamada is a 36-year-old layabout, but she will now just bestow health on him, and with her whip, she whips him until he blacks out. When he wakes up, he channels...
And I think it should be noted, I do think that this scene is very much intended to be sort of horny.
Yeah, this game is pretty horny, honestly.
Yeah. Yamada, he's like a 35, 40, fucking 50-year-old...
36.
36, there you go. He's a 36-year-old unemployed incel, basically. So, yeah, he's just extremely horny all the time. So, this lady who is the bad guy comes over and is a hot lady. And she's also, like, twice his size. Yeah. So she's like...
She's the Lady Dimitrescu of Dandy Dungeon.
Yeah, she's a dominatrix, and she whips him until he passes out. And it's like, it sucks that he got whipped until he passed out. When he wakes up, he says, "This sucks. I'm going to channel this into my video game." But also, like, the way the graphics are.
Yeah, the sounds he made too. Just like,
he's not uninto it at all. And this permeates the entire game. It's just weird. He's a fucking loser. Yeah. Which is extremely the point of the game. But it's also hilarious. Kind of inspiring, because it's like, maybe we're all losers, but maybe we could be a little less of a loser if we try hard and believe in ourselves.
Yeah. Speaking of him being a hornball, I should mention that when you win a dungeon, the animation is him feeling up the princess and then throwing his clothes off, feeling up the princess, and then it fades out and he's like standing on his bed pretending to be feeling up the princess, and then he gets tired of that and gets back to work, and it is hilarious every single time that it happens.
Yeah, it's extremely fucking good. Also, I was going to mention this earlier, but I will mention it. In the original version of the game, the girl's like first line, what's her name, Maria? Yeah, she goes, "Hi, I'm Maria, parentheses, 18 years old, into parentheses. I live next door." And first of all, it's funny because this is dialogue, so like you get the impression that she is like saying in parentheses that she's 18. And like that's creepy and fucked up, and it's
He's
supposed to
literally
make
half
you
his
feel
age.
uncomfortable. But I think that they took it out, even though the original game certainly isn't like condoning it. It's like, no, this guy's a weird horny freak. They did take it out in the Switch version. They probably thought that's a little too edgy for Switch. So in the non-Switch version, she is simply younger than him.
Yeah, he still later will lament like, oh, what am I going to do with this girl that's so much younger than me or something? But it doesn't say half my age.
Yeah.
So we grind for a lot, and then we go into the Queen's Castle that Yamada-kun implements because he channels his suck into his video game. And we go climb up the Queen's Castle, and we kick her butt. And we get the first of 3 significant objects, the Clock of Happiness. It's our first big boss, so not a whole lot of plot goes on around it. The love calculator increases to reach 35%. So Yasu comes over, and he tells us of some big news that Empire Group's food stores were found contaminated, and a lot of people got sick, so Komibitsu got fired. Then shortly after that, a new character shows up. Also, this is going to feel disjointed because it is, and you get story things, literally someone knocking on your door, coming in, saying something, leaving. So it's like this happens, and then you play the game for 4 hours, and then something else happens. Yeah,
the whole game is almost every time, maybe every 1, 2, or 3 sessions you play of the game, when the session is over, the screen fades to black. Now Yamada is at his computer typing, but instead of you being in control, you'll get a knock on the door. And every time you get a knock on the door, it's either an actual plot scene, the plot's advancing in some way, like what Sam was saying, or it is one of countless little dialogue scenes that don't advance the plot in any way and are just funny. There's a whole bunch of them. They're all real goofy. You meet other characters. There's another character in addition to what's the coworker?
Yasu and Bronson.
So in addition to Yasu, there's Bronson who comes over, and he's just perpetually like he's starving. He's extremely impoverished. I guess
Bronson is Maria's boyfriend. I was saying that those were the 2 important ones. I don't remember the unimportant one's name.
There's this other guy who comes over. And his whole thing is he's just like, I'm so hungry, you gotta give me something to eat. And you can and then you go, which I guess is saying fuck off.
Well, I think he's given the finger guns when he does that, when he says, Bokyun! Let's see. Oh, shoot, because the one guy that you're talking about is the thief.
Yeah, the thieves. Yeah, there's all these little guys who come over, and you have your dumb little dialogue with them, basically. Also, Maria often will come over and share facts about herself.
Yeah, which I have some in my memorable moments because she's great. But later, a new character shows up, and he tells us that we're real cool and our game looks real good, and then he punches Yamada in the face and leaves.
This guy wears sunglasses and smokes a cigarette at all times.
So you know he's cool.
He looks like, I don't know, he kind of looks like, who's Ninja Gaiden developer guy?
Can't remember.
Tomonobu Itagaki. He's sort of an Itagaki type. Wait, am I getting my famous Japanese game developers mixed up?
I don't know.
Whatever. Anyway, the guy who's in charge of Team Ninja, or at least was for a good decade before he left, he just always looks like the coolest person in the world, like riding motorcycles and having sunglasses and greased back hair and smoking cigarettes and playing guitar. He's like a parody of what you would think a cool guy is. Yeah, okay, there you go. I was remembering. You got it right.
Yeah. He comes back later and introduces himself. He is Bronson Kawada, ace game creator from Empire Games. That's literally his job title. He has a document to prove it. And he tells us that he is Maria's fiancé. So he punches Yamada a few more times and warns him not to touch her. Later, a horse comes by. Later still, Masamune, the personnel manager for Empire Games, comes by. He is dressed like a samurai. He says that brave Yamada has no honor, and he hits him over and over again with a samurai sword until Yamada blacks out. Yamada wakes up and decides to channel this suck into his hot video game, creating Tokugawa Cave, where he can face the second son, Masamune. We grind a whole lot, and then we do so. When we go and face Masamune, he's the first. His boss fight introduces multiple phases. It's pretty easy second phase, but still you have to fight him twice right when you think you won. And when you finally beat him, you receive the Tanuki of Moderation as our second significant object. This thing is horrifying looking. It is grotesque. It is not pixel art. It is like something out of a Homestuck where you would take a photo and squeeze it down to look like pixel art. It's gross and I hate it. It's so good.
Yeah, this game does a thing that I don't like it when most games do this, but this game does it on purpose. It kind of uses sort of like mixed... I don't think it literally uses mixed pixel density. Like, I think it actually is consistent, but it definitely has like mixed styles of art, specifically when it comes to like its cut-in images, its background images, some of its UI. It's got a really rough-hewn kind of look to the graphics.
Yeah, it's really cool looking when they the way they pull it off. It does. Mixed pixel densities because it's doing a lot of like zooming in and zooming out
That's
of
true.
people.
It does a lot of that.
And then at the end, as we'll say in my memorable moments, they use some like high definition photography for jokes.
Sato the thief and Suzuki the monk, by the way.
Yeah,
those are the other.
There we go. Also, Aja, the wizard programmer.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I forgot about him.
He's like a stereotype of like a how do you say it? Not a racist way, just like like Arabian Nights type character, very stereotypical. And he shows up like literally hovering in the air, doing like a cross-legged, and he levitates a keyboard and mouse. And he basically is like, I'm the greatest game developer in the entire world. I'm a genius programmer. So he'll show up and tell you a good idea that your game should have, and then implement it.
Yeah.
Right. Sato and Suzuki are both associated with the Gashapon system. The Hungry Questers is what it's called. You pay them some gold, and they'll go off and fight a whole bunch of stuff, and then give you shit in return.
Yeah.
Also, there's one that isn't in this game. There's Mamazon. Mamazon is just a big... I actually kind of forget what she looks like, but if I recall in the original
she looks
game...
like Quina from Final Fantasy VIII.
Yeah. She's a very rotund food lady. And she represents Mamazon.mom, which has a little jingle. And it's the original game's IRL store, or the real world money store. Since they cut that out of the game, you lose Mamazon and her cute graphics and the little jingle and the little ads.
She's in this version. I have a screenshot of her.
Oh, I must have just forgotten because I played it a while back.
Yeah.
And never mind. Well, then Mamazon's great. We love her.
We love her. So, After receiving the Tanuki of Moderation, Maria comes in to shake our hand for working so hard. So obviously that means our love gauge shoots up to 75%. And Yasu then comes in to tell us that there was a huge fire at Empire's weapons manufacturing, and so Masamune got fired. So at the end of each major quest line like this, Yamada like pulls a Jerry Springer and turns to the camera and he delivers a like philosophy line. I didn't think to write it down, but the first one is like, if someone is trying to sell you health, then like don't trust them. Basically, it's like if you're trying to make money off of healing people, you're not in it to help people. And then this one was like, wars suck, etc. And it was like point blank, and I really liked it. But shortly after that, there's a new news article that homeless people have been going missing and the spooky mansion by Yamada's house was suddenly filled up with creepy dolls, mysteriously. So Yasu comes over to discuss the ghost, and the power flickers out. There's a weird man at the window, but Yamada doesn't see it. He instead implements
That's when you implement a feature that makes another feature not matter anymore. You implement it.
Yes. So he implements a spooky mansion level, and he asks Yasu to debug it. Afterwards, the power goes out again with a weird man in the window, and every time Yamada tries to turn the lights back on and program more, the power goes out again. So then suddenly, the head doctor from the prestigious Credit Trust Empire University Hospital, Dr. Bye-Bye, shows up. He looks at our chart and crunches some numbers and finds that we aren't worth much, only $2,300. This causes Yamada to faint, and so he turns insult into sweet hot video game and implements some creepy stuff for the House of Dolls level. At the top of the House of Dolls is Bye-Bye. The top floor of the House of Dolls is a realistic modern hospital room. This is the first time this happens in the game, and it is not the last, where like the metaphor is just replaced with the text, and it's really cool. So
the game never explains like what exactly is like going on here. Like it's very much a magical realist, where it's like, no, it's not. You can't just read it as a metaphor, because then the plot doesn't make any sense. But you also can't literally read it as a fantasy story, because that also doesn't make sense. Like I mean, like from a logical standpoint, you can't tie the plot threads together. Either like, no, this is just a guy programming a video game reflecting his life. It's all just his internal world. It's all metaphorical. No. The game refutes that could be a possibility. But it also refutes the alternative. So it's just like, it's this really weird zone. Reminding me a lot of Haruki Murakami. And I guess a lot of other Japanese modern Japanese writers, but he's one I've read the most of. So no, it does remind me of some specific books of his, not just like the whole genre.
So the in the modern hospital room is Bye-Bye. He is the first boss that has lots of really cool mechanics. So what he does is he clears the room, drops down some walls, and then splits into 3 people, and you have to find the right one. So the only one of them has his correct character model. Some of them will have like different colored horns, different colored ties. Some will have eye patches, etc. And so you have to find him and take him down. It is super cool. So we eventually kill him, and we get the globe light, the last of our 3 significant objects. Back in the real world, Maria tells us that we have so much courage for getting up after getting beat up so many times, and that she likes blue skies and white clouds and Yamada-kun. She loves Yamada-kun. So our love gauge is at 100, and we're feeling great. Yasu comes in with breaking news. The university hospital is shut down because they were trafficking human organs. But Yamada can't focus on this news because he has to propose to Maria-chan. There is a mini game where you have like a demon negotiation type thing to propose to Maria, and at the end of it, you kiss. Everything is great. Bronson is outside the window looking all angry because you stole his girl, and then the 3 significant objects start going fucking crazy, and the king comes in and destroys Yamada's apartment and takes us to the good old-fashioned JRPG Swirly Void. Turns out that Maria's dad is the chairman, and he takes Maria away from Yamada and says that she's confined in the Demon Lord's castle, which, noted, is a level in our video game, and he dares Yamada to come and get her. So, reporting live from a JRPG swirly hellscape, Yamada freaks out, and he says that he wants Maria's parents to approve of the marriage, but her dad is so mean, so it'll never happen. He is completely uninterested in the fact that he's swirling above hell outside of his door. Somehow the doorbell rings and Bronson comes in. He says that Yamada is weak because he's giving up on Maria so instantly. If he really loved her, he would do anything for her. So he starts punching Yamada as usual, but Yamada has had enough. He starts punching back. He manages to knock Bronson all the way down, and Bronson says he's ready in the most, like, cheesy movie scene of the whole game, and I cackled when it happened. So he is now brave Yamada-kun, and he must defeat the demon lord Ayana Koji. So he does what he does best and programs some hot video game for us to play. The final dungeon owns. It is the demon lord's castle, quotes, 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 but it's just the Empire's office building, like set up exactly the way it was in the real world. And so you have a lot of like real life things that you have to do, like interacting with the secretary, and all of your like obstacles are like copy machines and stuff like that. Yeah. And so you make your way.
It kind of becomes what we always talk about as the talking dungeon. In a sense, it is still a fighting dungeon, but it's like it's cute.
Yeah.
It's also like, wow, this is the final dungeon, and here we are introducing all this new stuff and these new ideas.
Yeah. The worst and hardest one is the dudes in the suits shoot you if they see you, and it hurts, and you probably will die in one hit. So you have to like cross their paths with shit in your way. And so it like really changed because basically every level is a variation on like swirl to cover all of the spots until you go through the little hole, to then swirl till you get the spots till you make it to the door. This one is like, oh, well, there's a bajillion ways to do it, but if I just go in guns blazing, they're going to shoot me and I'm going to die. And so it was a super fun dungeon. I had to go through it a bajillion times because the final boss is hard, and I never was mad. So then you finally get to the final boss with the demon lord, and he's real hard. He says some stuff, but it's all RPG level stuff. He's not the final boss of the game yet. Spoilers. A JRPG with multiple phase final boss. Who'd have thunk it? But he's a combination of the previous boss's mechanics, which is super duper cool. But when you get his health bar down, he says that he has a trick up his sleeve, and he brings in like 25 of his guards and eats them all, and absorbs their energy and turns into a huge dragon with his ugly ass human face on it. And then you have to fight that dragon. And like I mentioned earlier, you're not moving around to do anything. It's just like, when do you proc your items to take him down before he kills you? And it's really cool. So after the dragon goes down, the man in the hoodie from the beginning, the evil programmer, comes in, and he hacks the demon lord's computer. Then he turns around and pulls off his hood, and it's Yasu. He says, Yamada, thank you for such a great game. Not your game that you're making, not the Adventures of Brave Yamada, but Dandy Dungeon. Thank you for this. I made a game that was a simulation of Yamada-kun, 36-year-old's life. He thanks Yamada for beating up his dad and his siblings. He introduces himself as Yasuo Ono, the illegitimate child of the chairman and his secretary. He was raised alone, cut off from the family because of the chairman's shame. That's it. That's his story. You've probably heard it before. But, well, heck, the game's almost over, so why don't you just come and kill him? So he wants us to punish him for making a game about killing his family, so the game makes you do it, and it's not hard. It's not trivial where like you walk up and kill him in one hit. He still has like mechanics, but every hit you land is like a third of his thing. So if you don't whiff, you'll get him in like 3 turns. But he thanks us again, and we leave the castle and save the princess. And this time, Maria is there in our apartment with us. We somehow actually did save her by playing a video game. They get to have their happy ending. Yamada proposes, and Maria says yes. They have a cute little ceremony in a church, which ends in his gross little boob grope animation and his clothes falling off, and it's funny. After the credits, Yasu says that Empire Games was bought by Dark Solid Games, who are super vicious, and they send in a Dragon Quest bat to kidnap Maria. And then the King Ayana Koji comes up and goes, "See you in the sequel, idiot." and that's it. There are more scenes that happen before the clock ticks over to Dandy Dungeon 2, but they are all getting you ready for Dandy Dungeon 2. This is the end of the game.
Yeah, and I don't believe they were in the original game. So therefore they don't count.
Nope. So let's listen to some other music and talk about our memorable moments.
Fa, 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 fa. Fa 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 fa. You know that once I was a dreamer, but now I've turned into.
All right. So I will go first because I want to. And so one of the little scenes that you get with Maria is Yamada wants to know more about her. So she's answering these as if she's answering questions that he was asking. So she's like, my favorite food? Oh, it's sweet potatoes. My favorite bath scent is sweet potatoes. Oh, my favorite drama on TV? Any drama where the character eats a sweet potato for any reason.
This chick really likes sweet potatoes.
It's great. And then a sequel to this Mint Mom is in the final, psyching himself up to go and save the princess. He goes, I have to save Maria so that I can eat sweet potatoes with her. It's great. One of you guys can go a couple.
Oh gosh, I got so many. I'll do one or two. Oh, I was about to be like, that's not Dandy Dungeon. That is Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon, and whatever, because that's also on Twitch. Just one of your. So one thing that was elided in this, which is fine, is that the game, when we say grind, we don't mean level up your character really. We mean because your character levels up you start at level 1 at the beginning of each level and then level up as you go through. So the longer the dungeon is, the more you're going to level up. Whatever, it doesn't matter. It's level up your equipment. So the game has a super elaborate crafting system. Well, it's not elaborate. It's just a lot of work. But basically, the more you use a weapon, the more it levels up. Or that's not true. Sorry, not remotely true. You basically, it's another throwback to another game. It's like Rogue Galaxy. You feed items into the grinder, the meat grinder, and it levels up your weapons. And you can even feed weapons into the meat grinder to make another weapon.
It is the exact same crafting that's in basically every gacha RPG since Puzzle and Dragons.
That's true. I don't play many gachas, but that is actually true from what I've played. So you eat things up to make your weapons better. But then once your weapon gets to its max level, which might be 5 or 10 or 20, you then need very specific items to level it up, and usually one of the items is a duplicate of that weapon. So it's like, in order to get the fire sword to the ultra fire sword, you need another level 10 fire sword, which requires getting a starter sword, leveling it up, blah blah blah. So it cascades, and all the weapons have different skills. It's really difficult actually to decide what weapon to use. There's one that hits 2 squares, the lance. There's one that hits things on the side of you. There's all kinds of cool little skills, or this is stronger against whatever. Anyway, one of the weapons is called Holy Book, and it's just a Bible. And I really like the flavor text. It's thick and gorgeously bound. Ghosts hate reading. So just to clarify that for those out there who maybe I didn't explain the joke very well, it's a Bible and it does extra damage against ghosts, but it's because they hate reading, not because they're unholy, which is really funny. And it does do extra damage against ghosts. Another cute part, I don't know, here's just a random line. The internet, man, it's so hard to stay focused in the information age. It's true. It's relatable. Yeah. And then just one more, and then you can do some. There's a very Tim Rogers-y line. I mean, the game is full of characters saying things like buddy and heck, and not cursing. But when you first, after you beat each boss, you can then replay the boss levels. And when they do that, there's often funny dialogue where it's like you're fighting them again because they just hate you and you hate them, so you're just fighting them again. Anyway, if you've already beaten the chairman's decoy and you go to fight him again, one of the lines is when you tap on the chairman to look at his flavor text, the game says, "The chairman's decoy, he's just hanging out." And I think his dialogue is similar. He's just like, he's literally just chilling and you're fighting him because, like, why not?
Oh, that's good.
My favorite line in the game is when you go into a room that's super full of monsters and it goes, "It's crawling with jerks."
Yep.
I fucking love that.
It's crawling with jerks.
That's my number one mem from this game, is just seeing that. Every time I saw it, I would laugh. It's like, it sure fucking is, game.
That's something that makes the game so cute, is that it's not just like the dialogue and the cutscenes that have really cute writing, like every bit of like UI text, like just the game is constantly suffused with just the funniest, quirky throwing. And I don't know a lick of Japanese, so like I'm guessing the original game is every bit as quirky and fun. Tim Rogers didn't invent the idea of fucking quirky writing. He just did a really great job, I'm guessing, of making it in English the same way it probably already was in the Japanese.
Yeah.
Which is just weird and dopey and like deadpan, but also like kind of raw in a fun kind of way. I don't know. It's the dry rawness that comes from people saying exactly how they feel instead of beating around the bush.
Yeah.
And that's funny because in real life people don't so clearly say those sort of things, They don't just be like, "Man, I'm depressed!" ! This sucks, buddy. Like, that's funny because you wouldn't say that in real life, right? That's sort of the whole vibe of the whole game. Yeah,
it's great. Another one that I have is at the beginning when it's tutorializing the rice balls mechanic. Yamada-kun like turns to the camera and he's like, "This is not a donut. This is not a hamburger. This is a rice ball. It is the lifeblood of Japanese people." And it's so good. I have no idea what the line would even be in Japanese, but it's 100%.
I bet it's literally just editorializing.
Yeah. It's hilarious that called Pokemon out like that. But one more that I have is in the proposal scene with Maria. One of the choices that you get is between the one answer says, "My heart," and the other answer says, "It is pumping much blood." And
that is, love that. I mean, that's accurate. Yes.
I'm a sucker for good dialogue choices in a game. Like, that's a surefire way to make me laugh. What about you, Maddy? Do you have some more?
Yeah, a couple. This game, one thing that is, again, another little layer of depth to this game, because I do think the game, like, it's so dumb and goofy, but it kind of gets at some real stuff, which is just like, I don't know, having depression and being unemployed and feeling like your life sucks. So the only thing you can do is, like, I don't know, do this passion project, right? Except the magical part of it is that being good enough at your stupid passion project magically fixes your life. Yeah. Which is just like, don't we all wish that? But anyway, one other little layer of depth that this game has is that the game never explicitly says this at a single point. It never mentions the name of this game. But this game is very true to real life in that the the 38-year-old Japanese businessman guy is obsessed with Dragon Quest. Yeah. Which again is 100% realistic to probably, your average 38-year-old Japanese business guy. It's kind of like how in America you have people who don't play any games except that they love Zelda. That's like the one game they've played. Or the one game they've played is FIFA. They play every FIFA game. Like, that's how Dragon Quest is for a lot of people. So this game is suffused with Dragon Quest references. The the graphics all look, and it's mostly like Dragon Quest 1 through 3 specifically. The graphics, like the way that the floor of the towers looks like Dragon Quest tiles. A lot of the enemies reference Dragon Quest. There's gold slimes in the game that don't give you a bunch of XP because the game doesn't have XP. They give you a bunch of money though. The game's got but also its music. Its main music that plays every single level is melodically almost it starts by sounding like Dragon Quest 1's dungeon theme, and then it diverts in a different direction. The boss music explicitly references the battle theme of either Dragon Quest 2 or 3. I forget which one right now, but the boss theme that's like that's literally
I think that's Dragon Quest 2. That's kind of like that one.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. Yeah, it is, because Dragon Quest 2 is do 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 do. Yeah, so it's that song references Dragon Quest 2 almost again word for note. There's probably other references that I'm forgetting, but those are the really obvious ones, the graphics and the music. And again, it's like diegetically, it's like, oh, this guy probably isn't a composer, so he wrote some music that sounds like Dragon Quest music because he likes Dragon Quest. And that, again, there's so much of that throughout the game. Also, I didn't get this in my version of the game. Maybe it's not in this version of the game. Did either of y'all fight Nobuo Uematsu?
No, I did not.
In the free-to-play version of the game, there's a lot of... In the free-to-play version of the game, there's a lot of time-sensitive, like the way the gacha stuff works, like, limited time only, this special dungeon and boss, and then it goes away, and then maybe a month later it comes back for 24 hours, right? It had a lot of that stuff, and they may have just had to cut it out of the game. Maybe they couldn't, or maybe they couldn't find a way to put it in. Like, maybe they suffused that stuff into the regular dungeon scrolls, but I don't remember the original game enough to know if what I'm playing is a transposition of the original game, right?
Yeah.
So maybe they cut a lot of it out, or maybe they just cut out Nobuo Uematsu. But no, yeah, I remember there was a lot of really weird, like, you know how the actual main plot levels contain so much like drama and dialogue and unique bespoke design elements? There was a lot of that in time-sensitive stuff, so I think they may have just cut a lot of it out. I don't remember most of it, but one of them is literally Nobuo Uematsu. I think he might... I don't think they even made up a new name. I think he might be called, like, Nobuo-san or something like that. Or, like, God Composer Nobuo or something like that. And he has a whole dungeon and dialogue, and you fight him, and I believe he may even have unique monsters that are like little like musical notes or something, and it has unique music that is inspired by Uematsu music. And if I recall, it's inspired by Uematsu music not in that it's sweeping orchestral melodies, but that it is like cheesy progressive rock bullshit. And I love that. It's like it's so much a love letter to both diegetically and non-diegetically is both Yamada and what's the name of the Amaya? Daisuke Amaya? Is that the name? No, sorry, that's Pixel. That's Pixel, the creator of Cave Story. What's the name of this developer again?
Onion Games?
Onion, yeah. It is both Yamada and Onion just paying so much homage to this genre of game and making a game that feels like a JRPG, despite mechanically it not remotely being a JRPG.
No, it is
a weird puzzle. It's like a weird puzzle game. But yeah, that's I had to mention the Uematsu thing because I figured neither of y'all knew about it.
Yeah, that's amazing. So two final ones that I have are in the scene where you're finally getting married to Maria. Yamada is talking about what love is, and he says that love is growing old and having babies, and the picture that it uses is the pixel sprites of Yamada and Maria holding a high-definition photo of a human baby. And it is
really, really good. Yeah, again, its mixed medium thing is extremely fucking funny. It's kind of like it's kind of like in SpongeBob, where they'll do like the cut-ins where the characters are drawn super high def.
Like,
it's like
or one of the first episodes where they went to visit Sandy for the first time, and they didn't know that it was like there was no water, and so they dried out, and it's just a picture of a sponge and a yellow kitchen sponge and a dried out starfish.
Yeah. And the final one is their vows in their wedding. The priest turns to Maria, is like, "Will you have a good time and do cool stuff with Yamada?" She goes, "I do, and I will." And it's great. I wish I would have known that when I got married, because that would have been my vows. Will you have a good time and do cool stuff with him?
That's right. I have just one more because I think it's just a little bit too good to pass up. When you meet Aja, the best programmer, so literally someone knocks at your door and he goes, "Yo, Yamada-san, namaste, I am Aja, I'm the best programmer." And if you're thinking this is mixing a lot of different cultural things, yes it is. And then he busts in, and I actually guess I didn't get a screenshot of this, but he comes in, remakes your whole game, and then after he leaves, Yamada's like, "Wow, yeah, that guy really is ... the best programmer," with like camel case. But then later he comes back and he's giving you all these advices, right? And this one he goes, "All right, man, I got 2 problems with your game. 1, you don't have an Egypt level. This is ridiculous. Gamers need Egypt, dude." And then his second thing is, 2, your game is way, way too easy. My dog could beat it, and I don't even have a dog. And then you get to decide whether or not to follow his advice, and the dialogue boxes in this game are from Dragon Quest. Everything about it. So anyway, the dialogue box says, "Follow Aja's advice," and then in parentheses it has a little asterisk that says, "He's the best programmer." And there's 3 options, and the 3 dialogue options are, "Aja is the best," "Aja is the best," "Aja is the best." And then finally, when Maria's fiance, I already forgot his name, Rufus Shinra, when he busts in and beats you up and modifies your video game and adds stuff to it, he also takes off all of his clothes before programming. Yes. So yeah, that's all I got. Yeah, the game fucking rules. If someone wants to force us to play Dandy Dungeon 2, I wouldn't complain.
Yeah.
But I'm really curious as to. I mean, this game goes pretty hog wild at the end. The extremely weird fucking meta twist about Yasu, which is great, and I love it. I can only imagine what happens in the sequel.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to play it, whether or not you guys force me to. But yeah, that will do it for the week. If you like what you heard and you want to be as cool as Bernard, you can head on over to rpgbook.club, where you can also commission an episode. By the time you hear this, that means that they will be open again, because that's how it works, is one at a time. So when you hear this, you can commission another episode and force us to play your favorite game, as long as it's relatively short. As long as it's relatively short and you're aware that like it might take us a good hot minute. I think it was October, thereabouts. That sounds right. Something
like that.
When Bernard commissioned this, and here we are now. Entertain us. So yeah, you can go and commission, and we'll pimp whatever you want us to pimp for 5 minutes, just like we pimped. Fuck, what's the full name? Let me scroll back up to my notes.
Let me get it. Okay.
It's How Am I Supposed to Fit In at College When There Aren't Any Other Animal People, But I'm a Possum Boy, the Ballad of Joey Virginia. Which, for updates, you can follow at Barnyard House and at Big Knife Studio on Twitter. But for RPG Book Club, I have been Sam Allman.
I am Elias Sailor Eli Warren.
And I am Maddy Grace Webben.
I bet ask you.
Ba 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 ba.
That's literally the track I was going to put in right there too.
Excellent.